Two college friends, Hallie and Rich, are rock climbing deep in the forest, far behind their other friends. As they climb, Hallie begins to struggle and suddenly slips. She screams, but her rope catches her just in time, dangling in the air. She calls for Rich to help pull her up, but there's no answer. When she looks up, she sees Rich lying motionless at the top of the cliff. Before she can process what's happening, Rich's body is thrown off the edge. Terrified, Hallie realizes someone else is up there. Her climbing rope suddenly tightens as whoever is above starts pulling her up. In panic, Hallie grabs her knife and cuts the rope, plunging down and landing painfully on Rich's lifeless body. Shaken and crying, she forces herself to move. As she runs through the forest, eerie laughter echoes around her, and the trees seem to move as if alive. Hallie sprints toward her car, desperate to escape, but just as she's about to reach it, she trips on a piece of barbed wire. Before she can free herself, something unseen drags her screaming back into the woods. The scene then shifts to Greenbrier backcountry, West Virginia. A man named Chris Flynn, a medical student, is driving through the countryside on his way to a job interview. On the radio, he hears a news report about two missing college students, Hallie and Richard, who vanished on Monday. Police have found no trace of them. As Chris drives, he comes upon heavy traffic. Curious, he steps out of his car and talks to another driver, who tells him there's been a chemical spill ahead, and the road will be closed for a long time. Not wanting to be late, Chris decides to find another route. He calls Doris to say he'll be about 30 minutes late, but the call drops before he can finish. Chris continues driving until he spots an old, run-down gas station. Inside, he finds a strange old man behind the counter. Chris politely asks if there's a payphone. The old man silently points toward one. Chris tries to call again, but the phone doesn't work. When he asks if there's another phone nearby, the old man says there's one far away. Chris then asks for directions for a different route since the highway is jammed. The old man gives vague answers. So Chris notices a map on the wall and studies it himself. He asks about a marked road, Bear Mountain Road, and a dirt path nearby. The old man doesn't say much, but Chris decides to take the dirt road anyway. As Chris leaves, the old man mutters that he should take care of himself. Chris drives along the narrow dirt road deep into the forest. After some time, he sees a dead deer lying in the middle of the road. It looks strange, mutilated. As Chris swerves to avoid it, his car loses control and crashes into a Range Rover parked in the middle of the road. The Range Rover belongs to a group of friends on a hiking trip: Jesse, Carly, her fiancé Scott, and another couple, Evan and Francine. Chris quickly gets out of his car, apologizing for the crash. The group checks their vehicle and realizes all their tires are blown out. Jesse walks a little way into the woods and finds a piece of barbed wire stretched across the road, tied between two trees. It's clear their tires were deliberately punctured. Jesse says she saw a gas station nearby and suggests walking there, but Chris tells her he's already been there. There's no phone. Jesse asks if he's okay, and he says he's fine. Jesse, Carly, and Scott decide to go look for help, and Chris joins them. Evan and Francine stay behind with the cars. On the way, Chris asks Scott what they were doing out here, and Scott explains they were camping and got lost. As they walk deeper into the woods, they notice a decomposed animal lying on the path. Carly and Scott are disgusted, while Chris, calm and composed, examines it briefly. They're surprised when he tells them he's a medical student. Chris mentions he has to be in Raleigh by 7, and Jesse urges him to keep moving fast. Later, Scott and Carly spot what looks like smoke or fire in the woods. Thinking someone might be there, they start shouting for help, but no one answers. Uneasy, Chris tells them to keep walking. Meanwhile, back at the cars, Evan and Francine are relaxing. Evan tries to fix the car while Francine snacks on food she finds in Chris's car. Suddenly, Evan hears a noise coming from the trees. Thinking it might be Jesse or someone else, he walks off to check. Time passes, and Francine realizes he's been gone too long. She calls for him, but there's no reply. Nervous, she grabs a flashlight and goes into the woods to look for him. After a short walk, Francine finds one of Evan's sneakers. Then, horrifyingly, she sees his severed ear lying nearby. Before she can run, a figure suddenly appears and wraps barbed wire around her mouth, tearing it open. Back with the others, Scott doesn't notice Carly has wandered off until she suddenly jumps out and hugs him from behind, scaring him. She laughs and apologizes, saying she didn't mean to frighten him. As Chris, Jesse, Carly, and Scott continue walking, they come across an isolated, dirty-looking cabin deep in the woods. Jesse hesitates, saying something feels wrong, but the others convince her to go inside. The place smells awful and is filled with strange objects: barbed wire, old car keys, and bits of metal. Carly says she needs to use the bathroom, so Scott helps her find one. While exploring, Jessie opens a refrigerator and freezes. Inside are human body parts. She covers her mouth, terrified. Chris and Scott check the bathroom and see more blood and remains. Panic sets in. Before they can escape, they hear a truck pulling up outside. Someone is coming back. The back door is nailed shut, trapping them inside. They quickly hide. 3 deformed, cannibalistic mountain men enter the cabin, dragging Francine's mutilated body. The group watches in horror from their hiding spots as the men butcher and eat parts of her body. No one dares to move or make a sound. Hours later, as dawn breaks, the cannibals finally fall asleep near the fire. Chris carefully gets out of hiding and Jessie tries to stop him, whispering that it's too risky. But Chris insists it's safe for now. Slowly, Jessie, Carly, and Scott follow him. Chris holds the door open as the others slip outside. Before leaving, he glances back to check if the cannibals are still asleep, but one of them, Sawtooth, suddenly wakes up. Chris bolts for the woods, shouting for the others to run. Jessie, Carly, and Scott sprint after him, their hearts pounding. Carly breaks down crying, terrified and exhausted. Scott hugs her and tells her they'll find a road. They'll make it out alive, and once they do, they'll go home, get married, and never come back to these woods again. Sawtooth alerted the other cannibals and began to chase them. The group hid in a clearing filled with many cars, and was shocked to realize these were the cars of the mutants' victims. Chris heard a sound and noticed the cannibals were coming. He told his friends to get down. The cannibals left their truck running as they searched for them. While Chris told the others they needed to take the cannibals' truck, Scott suggested that one of them should distract the cannibals so the others could get to the truck. Chris said he would do it, and as he ran, he began making noise to draw them away. He managed to distract them, but got shot in the leg with a shotgun. Scott then saved Chris by sacrificing himself as a decoy, allowing Jessie and Carly to steal one of the cannibals' trucks. Chris got into the truck, and they tried to find Scott. Carly saw Scott in the forest and called out to him. As Scott started to get into the truck, he was shot 3 times in the back with arrows. One arrow nearly hit the others, and Chris quickly covered Carly's eyes while telling Jessie to drive fast and escape. The cannibals picked up Scott's body and took it back to their cabin. Carly cried hard, mourning for Scott as they continued their journey. Chris, Jessie, and Carly hit a dead end in the road and had to continue on foot. Carly refused to move, saying the cannibals would still find them. Jessie tried to calm her down, reminding her that Scott died to protect them, and they had to stay alive for him. Carly was still depressed from Scott's death, but Jessie and Chris comforted her and they kept walking. While moving through the forest, they saw a bear trap and carefully avoided it. After climbing for some time, they got tired and stopped to rest, where they found an old watchtower. They climbed up and rested for a while. Jessie treated Chris's leg wound, and Carly found a radio and tried to call for help, but got no response. Chris looked out the window and saw the cannibals approaching with torches, reaching the base of the tower. He told Carly and Jessie to stay low. Suddenly, the radio started receiving a response, which alerted the cannibals. They shot through the window, destroying the radio. The cannibals climbed the ladder and set the tower on fire. Trapped, Chris, Carly, and Jessie had no choice but to jump. They escaped by leaping out the window into a nearby tree. As they began climbing, Three Finger had already climbed up the tree before them. Chris and Jessie climbed higher as Carly stopped to rest. Suddenly, Three Finger sneaked up behind Carly and split her head in half with an axe. Her body fell through the trees as Chris and Jessie watched in horror. They escaped the cannibals and hid in a cave near a waterfall until morning. Jessie woke up from a nightmare, and Chris comforted her. Just as they found a road out of the woods, the mountain men appeared again. They pushed Chris down a hill and captured Jessie, taking her back to their cabin. Chris survived the fall and met a sheriff, but before he could explain what was happening, the sheriff was killed by an arrow through the eye. Chris hid as the cannibals loaded the sheriff's body into the truck and drove it back to the cabin. He held onto the underside of the truck and followed them. At the cabin, Jessie was tied to a bed and gagged with a dog leash, crying. Just as the cannibals were about to kill her, Chris crashed the police truck through the cabin, running over one eye. Chris untied Jessie and freed her. Jessie shot Sawtooth in the back with an arrow, and together they fought Three Finger, killing him with an axe. Chris and Jessie noticed the cannibals were still alive and quickly ran outside. Chris had one shotgun shell left, which he fired at the truck. causing an explosion that destroyed the cabin with the cannibals inside. Chris and Jesse drove away in the cannibals' truck and stopped at the gas station. Badly injured, Chris got out and destroyed the map to the cannibals' cabin, wanting to keep others safe so no one would enter the woods again. He got back into the truck as Jesse drove into the forest. The credits were interrupted by a scene showing a deputy sheriff inspecting the remains of the destroyed cabin. Suddenly, Three Finger, who had survived the explosion, came up behind the deputy and killed him. The screen faded to black as insane laughter echoed through the forest. I hope you enjoyed this recap. If you did, don't forget to subscribe and check out the other recaps on the right next. As always, grab your popcorn, enjoy yourself, and see you soon.